I'm Sunil Kumar from the Taxmann Advisory and Research Support Services. I hope you all are doing good. So in today's presentation, I'll be discussing a very important issue. It's an ongoing issue. The issue relates to ITC availability on purchase of motor vehicles, that is passenger vehicles, which are used by the companies to further supply in the form of renting or hiring. You may say that ITC in this case would be available. The plain reading of, if we read the law, the plain reading of the law would provide that ITC would be available. Then why there is a need of this discussion? The discussion is needed because the GST authorities these days are alleging that ITC to these companies, the companies who are engaged in the renting or hiring of motor vehicle, is not available to them. So in this presentation, we will be discussing about the arguments which the authorities are taking and our stand on those arguments. That would be helpful to argue or to make your case before the GST authorities. So if we quickly see the transaction, so there is a company who is engaged in the renting or hiring of the motor vehicles. It purchases the motor vehicles from car dealers or maybe directly from the car companies on which GST is there. They avail the ITC and they use this ITC to discharge their output liability of renting or hiring of motor vehicle. So the provisions under the GST law, section 17(5), which deals with the block credit, it provides that notwithstanding anything contained in section 16 subsection 1 and section 18 subsection 1, the ITC shall not be available in respect of the following. Namely, the clause A provides motor vehicle for transportation of persons having approved shifting capacity of not more than 13 persons, except when they are used for making the following taxable supply, namely A, further supply of such motor vehicle, B, if you are engaged in the transportation of passenger transportation business, and third, if you are a driving school. So in these three cases, one can avail the ITC. The question is whether a company who is engaged in the business of renting or hiring of motor vehicle, will it be getting covered under clause A of the exclusion clause? The clause A provides that further supply of such vehicle. So the question is whether the renting activity is getting covered in this expression, further supply of such motor vehicle, or not. So this provision of 17(5) was amended by the CGST Amendment Act 2018, which was made effective from 1st February 2019. Prior to it, the provision used to provide that notwithstanding in 16 or 18, the ITC shall not be available in respect of following, namely motor vehicle and other conveyances, except when they are used for making the following taxable supplies. Then again, the three categories were being provided by the Act. So if we read the provisions which were there before the amendment, February amendment, or post the February amendment, the provisions were same. And the authorities are basically disallowing this credit from July 17. So it is important to understand the provisions which was there prior to February 2019 also. So the provisions were same, right? So the department is arguing that if you read the exclusion clause, it provides further supply of such motor vehicle. So they are saying this exclusion clause would cover only the scenarios where you are into purchasing and selling of motor vehicle. That is, you are a dealer. Then you would be getting covered in that clause. If you are not the seller of the motor vehicle, you would not be getting covered and the benefit of exclusion clause would not be available to you. They are saying that there needs to be a transfer of ownership for the purpose of this clause. If you are engaged in this business and your activity per se qualifies as services, not supply of motor vehicle, you would not be entitled to take the benefit of this exclusion clause. In our view, this interpretation which the authorities are taking is not correct. In our view, the ITC is available. If we see the exclusion clause, it provides further supply of such motor vehicle, and supply in its purview categorically includes the renting activity. Therefore, the literal interpretation is not giving any absurdity. Therefore, any other form of interpretation, if they are following, is not correct. In the exclusion clause, there is no condition for transfer of ownership. It simply says there needs to be a supply of such motor vehicles, and you are just purchasing and further supplying such vehicles in the form of renting, right? In arguing this case, one should also take note of the fact that the very purpose of the GST law is to avoid the cascading effect. And if one is not allowing the ITC of the main input or input services, then this very purpose of the GST law would be getting defeated. And if we refer in this regard, the famous case law of Orissa High Court in case of safari retreats, there the High Court read down the provision of 17.5D. The issue was that whether the mall owners, the developers who are developing the mall and providing it further to the corporates for opening the shop there on renting basis, will they be entitled to avail the ITC for that construction services? Right. This was the question before the Orissa High Court. There the court said that the very purpose, while concluding the view, the court has heavily relied on the basic principles why this GST has came. And one of the important point they have noted that there's a intent to avoid the cascading effect, and therefore they said the ITC would be available, and they read down the provision of 17.5D, which provides that the ITC on construction services on his own account in respect of investment property is not available. So following the same interpretation, if you are not allowing the ITC on purchasing the motor vehicles which is used in the renting business, this would be against the very principle of the GST law. Therefore, this needs to be allowed on this basis also. There exists the divergent advance rulings on this issue, and authorities, while making their case, may rely on these advance rulings also. So what would be the way forward? The way forward is that though the GST authorities are not allowing this ITC, they are alleging that the companies are not entitled to avail ITC on the motor vehicle. But in our view, the ITC is available. And if you have received any audit query, show cause notice, or you may be at appellate stage, because we have seen that in certain cases, the appellate authorities have also passed order against the taxpayers. So if you have received any audit query or show cause notice, or you may be at appellate stage, you should incorporate the points we have discussed while arguing your case, and wherever needed. And it is also important to note that in few of the cases, the writ petition has also been filed against the order of the appellate authority, right? Because authorities are directly now applying the recovery provisions, and therefore the taxpayers are approaching the high courts because tribunals have not yet been formed under GST law. So one should also track the position which the high courts would conclude, because that would be relevant in your case also for arguing before the authorities. So this is all from my side. Thanks for your patience listening. In case you have any queries, you can simply write us at connect@taxmann.com. Thank you. Thanks a lot.